Hey, welcome back to PHAMCAST. I am excited to continue this conversation with Marsha, and we got to dive in now, Marsha. We talked a little bit about neuro-linguistic programming and how you're actually not just a practitioner but a trainer. You have used it for your own self, your life, and it has contributed madly to your success. Even though, and especially since you've walked through some really challenging times. I know you've shared with me, even in some of the most challenging seasons of your life, you have held with your heart-wired mentality and the way that you use this work to have some of your best years in business. That's not only admirable, it's doable. And so for those of you that are at home and you're thinking, what is this NLP? And like you said, people like us, I must admit, years ago I thought, oh, this is fluff and stuff. This is all woo-woo medicine, woohoo. But then there's this thing called, neuroplasticity, and we get to rewire our brain, and we get to decide right up until our last breath how our brain functions and what we feed and fuel it and how we mold it and can change it. Talk a little bit about NLP from that lens for the average person. It's not just woo-woo. How do you actually integrate that into your life?
There's so many ways. I feel that, whether it's business, personal life, athletics, whatever you're working towards, your conscious mind makes up 5% of who you are. That is like your driver that creates like the vision board. You think it, you see it, you put the goals down, you buy the gym membership, you buy the clothes, you do all the things, you can put it in your calendar. If you don't see yourself as that person who is consistent going to the gym, doing, nutrition, food, if you don't believe that to be true, the best program, calendar, gym membership, trainer that you can pay through the nose for won't make a difference until you actually work on the beliefs of where that mismatch is. And so I like to say the conscious mind is the 5%. That is like the goal setter, which is great. We're all amazing at setting goals.
Right.
The goal getter is your subconscious, which is 95% of who you are. And that means that's where 95% of you is your thoughts, your beliefs, your decisions, your choices, your values, identity, past programming, language that's on repeat. And, we are a society, a lot of us are in a space of trying to grow personal development. We're doing all the things, which is amazing. But if you're not addressing what's running here, you can't outwork something that you do not believe is possible. So your subconscious mind is the goal getter. That's where the difference is, and that's where you want to do the work. And so in a quick, simple way I say simple, it is, we are, as humans, we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. 80 to 90% we repeat every single day and have for our entire lives, and 90% of those are negative, and that is before the world gets us. So imagine.
And let that sink in.
Yeah.
Like I know this stat, and it is so, and I see this as a massage therapist on my tables, that negativity, and especially right now in a world that we're living in, holy moly, if we don't recognize that and recognize we do take in a lot of negative, it's on repeat, and what that does to our minds, our bodies, our souls, our pocketbooks, then we're mistaking. So the awareness is, first of all, one thing. So let's talk about that though. So this, but now what do we do?
Now what do we do? I think what it comes down to is like when people say, well, that's a lot of information, I like to share that because you can do the work on a limiting belief, which is amazing. Do that work, and we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. So people say, do you have to do this work every day? And I'm like, well, do you think every day? Because if you do, then yes, you do.
And for years to come.
Yes,
because
you do.
I'm sure even someone like you who's now a trainer in this space, let me ask you, and this is kind of a rhetorical question, are you using this on yourself daily because you always have to check yourself? Because how human of us to have these limiting beliefs and surface again, even though you think you've worked on it.
You're going to be doing this. This work is nonstop for the rest of our lives. And if you're a person like myself, like yourself, like listeners who are out there setting goals, creating new things, if I look at everything that I do in my life and business today, none of it existed 5 years ago.
Right.
So without this work, I would have never been able to do and hold and create what we are creating. And I still have these challenges all the time. Right. So I just want people to know, like, this is, as you grow into your versions and new versions of yourself, or you experience life challenges, because that's another piece of our story and how I even started in this work, is being in this space of, you know, as you're being challenged, what are you saying to yourself when it happens? Like, what are you repeating? And I know that for some people, they feel that I don't have people in my life who support me. And I say this with so much love. Do you support you? Because do you believe in you? Do you support you? Do you talk to yourself? Because that's all that matters, because 24/7, this is who I spend my time with.
I think we have to really hang on that point for a moment, because it's really, really powerful, and I really don't think a lot of people stop and really think about that. It's really easy to blame others, or to say, well, I don't have that encouraging family, or look at you, you have this and I don't. But like you said, this is where self-leadership really lives. It really lives within us. And forget what degree you have or don't have, forget all of that. What you just said is so important that people really need to hear, and that we have to repeat it over and over again, that it does, and the answers are within you. I think in the busy world that we live in, and all the information we're getting, we got to get quiet enough and practice this enough to actually recognize it when it's happening. So how do we recognize that limiting belief showing up over and over again, sometimes disguised in different ways? Because I know you help people really change their lives, their businesses, in doing this work. Can you explain something tangible like that, that people will really get? Because it's powerful when the light bulb goes on.
Oh, it's so powerful. And there's so many different ways I could take this. What I would say is, people know what thought they have on repeat, that they keep saying, that they keep thinking, that they keep having. You don't need me to tell you that. You know what it is. And the challenge is that when you speak that limiting belief out loud, most people in your life are going to say, that's ridiculous, Margaret. Why would you think that? You have so much proof in your life. Well, it doesn't have to be. Most limiting beliefs are not logical. They're actually created by the under 10-year-old version of ourselves, right? That is out there. Those tools and what she thought and believed back then supported her in a world that she was growing up in, because that was our most formative years. And so now it's recognizing that, like, I often joke around that if we're not careful, my 8-year-old version is driving the car. I'm in the back doing the personal development, trying to read all the things and learn everything, but I haven't addressed the fact that the 8-year-old's still driving. Yeah. So how can we actually get to the root of what those limiting beliefs are? So I just want to normalize that. Ask yourself what they are, and don't worry about what anyone else thinks of that. And truth be told, if I took every single limiting belief that people have, like every single one, and I threw them all in a pot and I boiled them down, it's going to come down to not enough, not good enough, who am I to, that imposter type syndrome. So it's pretty universal. And imagine if you're in a space of, like, out here creating what you're doing, for example, and you are like, I work harder, do more, get more connections, do these things. But the belief that's running over here is it's not enough. So if it's not enough, when is it ever going to be enough? And that's the piece of where there's a disconnect that happens. So that's the first thing, is can you be real about what that belief is?
Yeah, and this work is hard because it stirs up a lot of triggers of a lot of things, which means there's emotion. And this is where I love, you know, our work in collaboration, and you with your kin background and me laying on of hands and the power of touch. Our bodies are a house for our emotions. I know I was recently attended one of your master classes, and you know, were incredible, as I expected you to be. I'd never been in one of your classes, and I loved being there as a participant and watching you do what you do so well. But what it often does, this work, is bubbles up emotion from deep places that people can't control. That's when you know you've got to the root of a belief. That doesn't mean it's true. No. It just means it's there, like you said, that 8-year-old. And it was really interesting to watch you hold space in that room. I just want to publicly give you such an incredible compliment, because you absolutely held space, walked someone through in an environment. And yes, it was an inclusive space because you created it that way. But what I love about watching that is I've experienced it differently, because sometimes laying on of hands, people can't help themselves. I've had CEOs of companies on my table. I've had world-class athletes on my table. When the body is ready to release something, there ain't anything stopping it. It's the same work that you did through asking very respectfully questions from that NLP, that subconscious mind perspective, that all of a sudden emotions came up and they were real and they were raw. And I watched a woman on the call have a light bulb go on like that. How cool is that? And you see this all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, right? That emotion, it's housed deep because it does go back to those formative years.
It's the questions. If you can start to ask yourself different questions, you will start to unlock some of those limiting beliefs or pieces of yourself. So really understanding what is the words that you're saying on a regular basis. A lot of times they're not yours. They're actually things that you have taken on from someone else.
Oh my gosh. Mic drop. And I think we need to really, hear that, because yes, is it from, and it's not here to blame your parents or your coworker.
No.
It's to recognize it first. Forget the blame. I mean, right? Let's talk about that a little bit. But it does exist still, and it doesn't matter where it came from, but it is literally recognizing that it's there.
It's very much like, and that's where getting real with your language, with the words that you're saying, what you're saying to yourself is very important. I had this constant going through message that, you have to pay your dues, you have to have pain to have success, pain to have success. It's got to be hard. And that was, and it still is, that still is there. So even when I catch it, all of a sudden I stop and I'm like, oh, I see you. I know what you're trying to do. See, our subconscious mind has really one thing, one job.
Protect us.
Protect us, to keep you safe, and it chooses what is safe, predictable, and familiar every single time, which means I can set a goal of, I want to grow my business to, 9-10 times what it is. That makes our subconscious mind is like, are you crazy? That's an unknown territory. Let's just choose the discomfort that I already have and that I know, because it's predictable and it's familiar. And until we start to really uncover those pieces and get to know ourselves, which is why I'm such a big believer in self-leadership, that means seeing those parts of ourselves without shame or judgment, because we recognize that all those parts have done is just try to keep us safe. That's it.
Right.
It means nothing about if we are able to have what we are creating. And so really getting real with that and understanding that. There's a lot of other things when it comes to limiting beliefs, just for people in awareness, like with your language, your subconscious mind doesn't understand can't, don't, negative words. So if it's like, I can't have this, or you're in that space, it doesn't understand it. And most people that I find that by the time I get to connect and work with them, they will tell me everything that they don't want. They're great at what I don't want to have happen, and they will tell me all those things, and I'm like, okay, great, thank you. What do you want? And they're like, I don't know.
Silence.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I have no idea. And I'm like, let's start there. Let's what would feel great? And so when you talk about the emotions, as you start to ask questions, all of a sudden those emotions come to the surface. And if you're somebody like myself who had pretty much shoved them down for years, because that's what strong women do, you literally push them away, they're unfamiliar, and so they felt scary.
Right.
They felt scary.
Well, and for someone like me, who maybe just who I am, I have no problem showing my emotion, but it's then you tuck it in and you just woman up and carry on.
Yeah.
So when that word comes up, so when those, oh, well, who are you to 5 times your business in this past year, or whatever many times your business as you've talked about, when those limiting beliefs show up, how is Marsha leading herself to change, right, to stop it dead in its tracks, right then and there? Mm-hmm. What do you do when that happens?
Okay, amazing. So the first thing is that we all have our own internal representation of the world. Okay, so I just want to share. It's just imagine that we all have our own lens of how we see the world. So when somebody is negative, says something to me, and I'm like, oh, interesting. They have a different internal representation of the world than I do. It actually isn't personal. It's not personal at all. It's their world, and that's fine. So I'm responsible for my world. That's what ownership is. And so the first thing is if I am saying those words to myself, awareness is always where it starts, is I catch it and I'm like, oh, there it is again. I see that, neutral, from a neutral lens, no shame, judgment, criticism. And then the next question I ask myself is it true? Is it true? Is it actually really true? And I might know that it's not true, but I don't know how to shift that. Then the next question I take it to is, show me where in my life have I proven that that's not true? And I start to scan my world. And I'm like, oh, remember this time and remember this time? Like, I wrote a book in 2017 when the world thought I was absolutely crazy. Family wouldn't talk to me. And so every time I feel stuck and I feel like I don't know what to do next, I'm like, what did 2017 Marsha do when no one thought what she was doing was a great idea? Well, I have evidence. So go look for the evidence and stack the wins. If people would, I'm going to say this with so much love, the world is obsessed with writing gratitudes, and yes, gratitudes are important. But again, they are kind of like a surface level affirmation. I would invite all people to actually take the time to look at what you have come through, stack your own wins, so you're building your own reservoir of like evidence, so that when those limiting beliefs come up, you're like, interesting, I see you, there's neutral, and show me the times that I have done it. So you can look at your own evidence that you have stacked, and now how can you rewrite it in a new empowering way? And so you're evoking emotion for what you do want. Does those steps make sense?
They do make sense. And what I love about what you're saying, in a world that's so critical and judgmental of ourselves and one another, we are quick to point out where people have done things wrong, and certainly being self-critical. I love that. Stack your wins.
Every day.
So every day. So
Yeah.
even if it's a small win, and especially up alongside a hard time, a hard season, it's just so important, isn't it?
It's so incredibly important. And I'm going to say, as the high achieving, like type A, I spent my life as, sometimes my win is that I took a nap.
Yes.
Sometimes it's that I valued my bedtime and went to sleep. I took a bath. I actually drank my water today. I took care of me. I turned off my phone. It does not, I heard this is not mine. I heard Chris Williamson say on a podcast, and I think it's so gold. I love David Goggins.
Yes.
Okay, I love his mentality. But he said we actually need a parasympathetic David Goggins who says to the entrepreneur, put your phone down, get some sleep, prioritize this. Those are wins. I stack those every day because a past version of me didn't live by those standards. And this version of me does, and I'll tell you, it's made all the difference in the world.
Well, what a great segue to say, we're going to come back after this break to talk about the opportunity gap that we've both lived in, worked in for years. What does that mean? It's the time and space in between when we're well and when we're not, and the opportunity to get to stock your toolbox. That's what this preventative health movement, this show, everything that I'm doing in my life is about. The pillars of wellness, the simple things that Marsha just talked about, putting your phone down, getting some rest, calling and connecting with a friend, shutting out from the world when you need to listen to you for self-leadership. We're coming back after the break, and we're going to dive into that exact thing, the opportunity gap, self-leadership, and what it truly means to be the CEO of your health. I can't think of a better person to have that conversation with than Marsha. We'll be right back.